So now we can get onto some fun stuff. Obviously, a lot of what we're covering in the simulation tab here is a little bit more daunting, so I figure at least now we can get into a lot more of the stuff that you physically will see happen, rather than being more about optimization. So first of all, we're going to look at gravity. So what I'm going to talk about now is just very briefly is gravity, and this is a very simple subject that it is well worthwhile discussing, but it isn't a very complicated subject. So gravity has changed a little bit in FumeFX 2.1, and that is before you had buoyancy and gravity. And essentially the way it would work is that gravity would apply to your smoke and buoyancy would apply to your fire. So in most situations, it just meant that if you wanted your smoke to fall, you could set it with a negative temperature and it would fall. Or you could adjust gravity and it would fall quicker that way as well. Now it's a little bit different here where let's set my gravity to 1. All these are default settings. So if I run my simulation, we just have our normal simulation, which is that the fire and the smoke and everything work how they should. Alright, so here we can see I have some fire, smoke, everything looks fine, and I might just lower this so it seems a bit quicker, but ultimately what we can do here is if we adjusted my gravity to a multiplier of 10, what's going to happen is it's going to raise up a lot quicker. So now gravity becomes a universal multiplier for everything. And this is more interesting because originally we had a multiplier for gravity and a multiplier for buoyancy. And it kind of made things a little irrelevant because you're essentially controlling everything through this one thing. Or like these two controls. So here what this does is it's a multiplier for everything, meaning that I adjust this to a value of 10, it means that the buoyancy and the smoke are 10 times as stronger than they were. So just to give an example of this, I could set my smoke buoyancy to be a much larger value, like negative 50, and what's going to happen is that the smoke will actually be much heavier, so it will weigh down the fire. Now if I go much higher than 50, like negative 100, it's really going to make the smoke fall. So this means that the smoke buoyancy with the negative value is making the smoke fall down. Now you notice the fire is falling as well, and this isn't because the buoyancy is affecting the fire. It's actually because the smoke is pulling it down with it. So just to give an example, if I were to go to object source and disable my smoke, so there's no smoke being created, my fire will act fine just like how it did before. So it's actually the physical smoke that's causing this. So another example of this, just to kind of really ride this idea home, I could duplicate this, enable smoke but disable fuel. Go in and add this in and run the simulation. So now I have fire raising up, but then the smoke is falling. So now they begin to collide. And of course, if I added in more smoke and made this a lot heavier, there's a lot more I could do to make this really kind of pressure it to fall down. So naturally, the smoke falls and it pushes everything else with it. So you can kind of get an idea as to like how this all works. And smoke and fuel are separate, but they're offsets of the smoke buoyancy. So this just makes more sense just from a design point of view. I'm just going to make this more of a dark gray smoke just so we can see it a bit better, but we can definitely see that that is in fact working. Now, going back to here, I could set this to be, let's say, negative 35, which is still very, very heavy. So as we can see, the fire pushes through it for the most part, but definitely has that interaction that we're looking for. Now at the same time, I get my fuel buoyancy, and I could multiply this as well if I wanted to kind of counteract that. Ultimately, we can use this to get a bit more specific, but then if we wanted to multiply, we have the right chemistry, but we want to make it stronger, we can do that in here by adjusting both of them together through the gravity. So these are things that we can get to work hand in hand. So that's essentially what it is essentially gravity is going to control your overall universal value. And then these two are offsets of that.